Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar premiering the third edition of the Quality Self-Assessment Tool. My name is Timothy Fowler. I'm the Professional Development Director with the New York State Network for Youth Success. We really appreciate your time today. This webinar is being recorded so that we can share it. If there's anyone in your organization who's going to need this information, they will be able to access it through our webpage after this webinar. Quickly, I just wanted to share what we're going to be doing today. I'll tell you a little bit about the Network for Youth Success for those that are not familiar with our work. We're going to talk about what quality is, why we even need a QSA tool. We'll then look at the third edition tool, what the elements and indicators are, how the tool is organized. We'll talk about planning for improvement, the when and the what of the QSA tool, sharing results after you've finished the tool, and then what the next steps are in the larger process. We'll then save some time at the end for people's questions about the quality self-assessment. In general, this webinar today is about using the tool to assess your program. We're going to be doing another webinar in November that is going to feature how you manage the overall process for your organization. Today's webinar is focused on how to fill out the tool and how to do it in a way that's actually going to help that larger process. You will need your chat box, and you also notice that in there should be a way for you to raise your hands. There's a participants box that allows you to do that. So we will be working on doing some audience participation and engagement to keep the webinar lively. A little bit about me. I am the Professional Development Director for the Network for Youth Success. I am a New York State TTAP credentialed trainer, that's training and technical assistance provider. I'm qualified for both early childhood and school age care. And I have more than 12 years experience specifically working on quality improvement with after-school, summer, and expanded learning programs. That began with the St. Louis, Missouri quality standards. That city, that metro area, developed their own set of quality standards back in the late 90s. I also worked with Missouri's statewide after-school standards, helping programs implement that. I'm also trained in the Weichert Youth Program Quality System. They have formal assessment tools as well as a quality improvement process. And of course, most recently, the New York State Quality Self-Assessment Tool. So seen a lot of different types of tools and worked with programs in a variety of ways. What we're going to be doing today is focusing on how that QSA tool applies to you and how you complete it as part of that process. A little bit about the Network for Youth Success. We are the National After School Association state affiliate, so NAA. We are also one of 50 Charles S. Mott Foundation supported after-school networks. So we work closely with the After School Alliance to work in terms of improving quality and opportunities as part of a larger national network. We're also the state lead for the New York STEAM Girls Collaborative, which is part of the National Girls Collaborative Project. So part of our work at the network is to stay connected to what's happening on the national scale. But more specifically, our work is about strengthening the capacity and commitment of communities, programs, and professionals to increase access to high-quality programs and services beyond the traditional classroom. So that's a mouthful, but in short, we support the work of the people out there across the state who are interested in helping young people succeed. We want to help them improve the quality of those programs, and we want to make sure that those programs have the resources they need, not just to survive, but to thrive. So my work as Professional Development Director is primarily with individuals who work in those programs, but it also includes organizational development and program development, and other parts of our organization support the larger community efforts. So making sure that people are aware of the impact of after school and the importance of after school, everywhere from the families to the businesses to the elected officials that need to know what our work is and why it's important. Today's webinar is focused on quality. This is not the only element of quality that we do. We have resources to support programs in terms of understanding how they fit in and why their work is important. We also do accreditation for after-school programs, school-age care programs across the state. We do community-wide trainings, including workshops and conferences. We help programs get involved in the Child Adult Care Food Program. We also manage the statewide credential for school-age childcare. So people who earn that credential qualify, they meet the qualifications rather, to be site directors in after-school programs. We also have regional networks across the state. So these are local folks coming together for common purpose, whether that's training and development or solving mutual problems or coming together for advocacy. And we are also a membership organization. As I said, we're part of the National After School Alliance, so membership with the New York State Network qualifies you for the entry-level membership at the NAA level. So that's a little bit about us. These are where our regional networks are. All of the counties that are in blue have active regional networks. So we'll share some contact information at the end. If you want to find out about the network nearest you or you're interested in starting a network, we will share that information with you. Want to pause here to see if there's any questions people have about the Network for Youth Success, about our work. You can enter those in the chat box and we'll try to answer it. This is also a check just to make sure that everybody's got that chat box open and that you are able to write. So even if you have no questions, if you just type a quick no thank you or thanks for the info, just so that we can see that everybody's got their chat box open and they're able to respond. Because in a little bit, we are going to be asking people to share information via chat box. So just type a quick hey or yes or no or thank you in the chat box so that we know that everybody's there. Make sure that you're sending it out to all attendees as well, not just to me. So in the chat box, you should see that it says to, and that you get to pick, and it should say to all attendees. I see some people coming in. Thanks. Just wanted to make sure that everybody's got that chat box open and that you're participating. Feel free, as questions come up, to also enter them in here, but I will be sharing some questions with you that I'd like you to respond to. So thank you for the thanks and the yeses and the heys. Just wanted to make sure that everybody was there and paying attention. So great. Thank you, everyone. So my first question for you, now that you've activated your chat box, is what is quality? Specifically, I'd like you to try to identify what's the difference between a product and a quality product. So answer what is quality by telling me what is, in your mind, the difference between a product and a quality product. So tell me what you think that difference might be. We'll give a couple of seconds here for people to answer that question and enter it into the chat box. What is quality? What's the difference between a product and a quality product in your mind? And if you're just listening, that is more than okay. We really appreciate it. So standards of excellence, high standards of excellence. Thank you, Eileen. Meeting established standards. A quality product is meant to work well. So a product might work, but you want something that will work well. Thank you. Appreciate that, Brianna. Waiting to see if anyone else has other things to add. It exceeds normal standards. Thank you, Marcel. It has a positive impact. Thanks, Kathy. So now we're talking about it doesn't just meet the need, but now it really has an impact that's positive. So I'm hearing some above and beyond. I'm hearing exceeding standards, but also that we have standards and it meets a higher level standard. Awesome. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please enter them in the chat box. We will stop periodically to attend to those messages as we go. So my definition for quality means identifying that higher standard, having a really clear higher standard than average or normal, and then demonstrating that your program meets that standard. So it's having those standards in the first place, but then moving beyond them and saying, this is how I know we meet those standards. And I see that LaRonda basically has said almost the same thing in her own words. I appreciate that. So quality product is providing a higher standard of that product. And sometimes, you know what, just having the product is going to be good enough. Sometimes you don't need to exceed the standards, you just need to meet them. But when we start talking about after-school programs, if we can really assess where we are, do an internal process of assessing, and then move forward and say we're going to raise the bar because we are not the the clients, it's our young people who are. They are the ones who benefit from that product. So a higher quality product for them means that they are meeting their outcomes, that they are getting their needs met in an even higher way. Or maybe we're moving beyond basic needs and now we're helping them prepare for the future. Now we're planting seeds for success. Now we're involving not just young people, but the larger community. So this process, quality self-assessment, is internal. It's comparing your program practices, what's actually going on, to a high standard, and then getting you and your staff involved in actually deciding on what to do to increase that quality. So that's what we're talking about here with the QSA. This is what the new tool looks like. This is the third edition of the Quality Self-Assessment Tool. If you want to download and follow along and look at it yourself, you can visit our website. That's networkforyouthsuccess.org/QSA. That page has the old second edition that many of you might be familiar with, but it also has the new third edition and the tools that go with it. That's what we'll be spending our time talking about today. So I'm curious, how many of you already use the QSA? You can either say yes in the chat box, or there's a raise your hand feature. If you just want to raise your hand and let me know that you use the tool currently. I do, yes. I see some chats, thank you. I'm also looking to see some hands raised, excellent. So my unscientific eye looks like 25% to 33% of the people participating. Seeing some hands. Great. Hopefully, there are also some people in the audience for whom this is brand new. Again, we're going to focus today on how you use this tool to really take a good look at your program, see what's really happening, and start to make some decisions about where there might be some room for growth. Thank you. You can put your hands down. This is a list of the new elements, the new organization. So some of this language should look very familiar, but there are some minor changes. There are still 10 elements in the tool, but you notice at the bottom, there's now a supplemental element. We've added informal STEM learning. So for those programs that are doing science, technology, engineering, and math, those fields that we call STEM, those are now have their own set of standards that really focuses on getting youth involved in the skills of STEM, but also making sure that we're doing real content and real inquiry in terms of developing those skills and the thought processes behind the scenes in STEM learning. So that's the only new element. All the other elements have been reworked. In some cases, things have been folded together or moved to where they make more sense. And that is what we're going to look at right now. So this is what a typical page looks like when you're looking at the overview. Each element has its own definition. So you see here, element 3, relationships. In italics is the definition for this overall element. So we're talking about a quality program that develops, nurtures, and maintains positive relationships and interactions among staff, youth, families, and communities. Staff participants, families, and communities. I've got some boxes blocking part of my language there, so sorry if I misspoke there. So each element should clarify what it is about this element that is important for a quality program. And all of the indicators underneath it lead to shaping that overall element. So you see here in this screenshot that quality program number 1 has staff that respect and communicate with one another and are role models of positive adult relationships. That's the indicator. So this is where we're asking people to really think about what's going on in their program under that specific heading. If you look at number 2, a quality program interacts with families in a comfortable, culturally sensitive, and welcoming way, you can start to see how each indicator approaches relationships in a slightly different way. So the first is talking about staff behaviors in terms of how they model positive adult relationships with young people through their interactions with others. But then number 2 really focuses on the families. And are you interacting with families in a way that builds relationships, including specifically being culturally sensitive to those families who may be from different backgrounds and have had different life experiences, but also is your environment welcoming to them? Again, this is all focused on relationships. A whole nother element looks at the program environment and the physical space. This is really talking about how people interact with each other. So for each one of these, you'll notice to the right there are two different boxes. One is performance levels, and one is plan to improve. We'll talk about plan to improve in a couple of minutes, but performance levels is an area that is brand new in the user's manual. I'd like to show you that next. So each performance level, 4, 3, 2, and 1, is a vote for how often something is happening in your program. So for each of those indicators, like the ones we just reviewed, you're trying to determine where do we fit. Are we excellent? We are exceeding the standards. So now we're not just talking about exceeding regulatory standards or basic standards for operation. We're talking about exceeding the high standards. People that score themselves a 4 should be able to train other people. These are people who have mastered this element. So if we're talking about relationships with families, these are people who have exemplary practices when it comes to welcoming families. Maybe they have a very diverse community and they've learned a lot of techniques to get a very diverse community welcoming so that all of those families, regardless of where they come from, all feel like this program is for them. What we're suggesting people shoot for is a 3, satisfactory, meeting these high quality standards. So you and your staff and your program meet this standard. Families, for example, feel welcome. You are responsive to their culture. You feel like you know how to reach out to them, you know how to welcome them, how to communicate effectively with them, and they give you the feedback that says, wow, we really appreciate what you do. I feel like you appreciate all of us, not just the fact that we're a family with kids, but you want to know all about us and where we're coming from and what's important to us. That's satisfactory. That's meeting the standards. A 2 means maybe it's happening in some cases, not others. Maybe you're really good with some cultures, but there's new cultures in your mix and you don't know how to deal with them. And a 1, of course, means you must address and improve. You're not meeting the standard. This is an area where you really need to grow and probably need to take some action. So those are the performance levels. My question to you is, would you be satisfied with a score of 3? If your program was seeing 3s as they filled out this QSA tool, is that something you'd be okay with if you met a high standard? Or would you feel like if we're not hitting a 4, we're not successful? So go ahead and share your thoughts in the chat box. Would you be satisfied with a 3? We're getting some responses in. So yes, you absolutely have the potential to be better. In a year 1, maybe that would be okay, right? If you're meeting the standard, then at least that's in place. I see some people saying that they would want to work towards a 4. It might depend on the standard. And I agree, Eileen, that you have to be realistic. Sometimes hitting a 3 or getting to a 3 is a huge lift, and you just want to be there. So satisfied with a 3, but yeah, striving for a 4. And I just want to reiterate that a 4 really is about mastery to the point of being able to train and share with other people. So if you went to a conference, you'd want people who scored 4s sharing their successes with you. If you went to a training or bought a book on a particular area that related to an indicator, you'd want to know that that person at a 4 had formal training and years of experience, or they had learned things the hard way and now were sharing what they know about programming with you. So 3 is still really good. You're meeting a very high standard and you are hitting it. But you're not necessarily at that next level where your staff have mastered that content or mastered those skills to the point where they can articulate it to other people. There's certainly some areas, like for myself, special needs. I feel like I can work with children who have special needs and do a lot to support them, but I'm not really comfortable training or sharing that with other people in a way that I feel like would be effective. I feel like I need to do a lot of learning and growing. But I would still say, yes, I know to respect those children and how to work with them. So it's a big difference between being able to do it and then having the confidence and the background information to actually share it with someone else. And LaRonda is writing that 3 sometimes takes a lot of learning, planning, and implementation. And that's the reason why I bring this up. Making sure that you get to a 3 in all areas might be the best first thing for you to do, and then start working on those 4s, raising those 3s to 4s. But getting up to a 3 across the board for some programs is where you need to start. So thank you. I appreciate all of your responses. Now, this is a very busy page, but I want to show you that this is what is new for a lot of people in the 3rd edition of the QSA. Each indicator now has guidance for each of those performance levels. So if you're trying to figure out what's the difference between a 2 and a 3 or a 3 and a 4, the user's manual now has that information. So here we're looking at relationships indicator 2, interacting with families, the one I read earlier, and I've blown out the level 2 and level 3. So at a 2, you've got some interaction between families and staff. Staff members might welcome the families, but maybe family members who are not native English speakers are only given an opportunity to talk to staff members in their own language if there happens to be a staff member who understands their language. Or maybe there's only communication when there's a problem. There's not that regular communication where both staff and families share a common language that they're fluent in. Moving up to a performance level 3, you've got frequent interaction, and families are welcomed, but they're also invited to come to the site to learn more about the program. So now they're getting involved in what's actually happening during the program day. If you've got families who are non-native English speakers, then they can talk to staff members, and there are program materials in multiple languages. So even if that language barrier exists between staff and families, there are multiple ways that staff reach out to families in their most comfortable language so that that information is still communicated. So you don't just throw up your hands and say, oh, well, I don't speak Farsi. You try to make sure that you've got your materials written in Farsi and that you're working to try to engage those families in a language that they're fluent in. So this is a brand new thing, and I wanted to make sure everyone knew about this. This used to only exist on our website. If people visited our website and used that to sort of explore the quality self-assessment tool, they could get all of this guidance. But now that guidance is in the PDF that you can download, so people don't have to guess what's the difference between a 1 and a 2 and a 3, a 3 and a 4. You can read this and start to see, where does my program fit in? Which of these closely matches what I'm seeing in my program right now? And now you can make a more informed decision about where you are. The other great thing about this is if you look at the difference between where you are and the next level, now you've got some ideas on what might go into your program plan to help you move from one level to another. And I see in the chat box, Laurel says, it looks like a more well-defined rubric. I absolutely agree. Again, this did exist on our website before, but a lot of people only used the downloaded tool. They would print it out and go with that. They only looked at that page that I showed you earlier that just shows the indicator and then the score box. This goes into detail. So we're making sure that all of this information is much more widely available to everybody that's filling out the tool. So we're really excited about this. And I'm bringing this up too because some of you are going to download the PDF and you're going to think, I thought this was going to be a shorter, more efficient tool, and this is like 100 and something pages. This is why. There's more information that was only web available before. So the document may look gigantic, but it's actually giving you a much higher level of detail. So there's not more indicators. There's only one more element, and that's supplemental. This is why that document is now huge. It's to give you the specific guidance. So I mentioned before that planning for improvement was that other box on the side that we would talk about. Your choices are right now, this year, or next year. This is a critical part of filling out the tool because this is where you make some decisions about what actions do we need to take. So as people fill out the tool and they're starting to think about what's going on, they're looking at an indicator, they're looking at their program and trying to think about what's going on in my program and how do we deal with it. these are some natural things that come up. People start to think, well, if we only had these materials, we could absolutely add science in. Or we used to have equipment to do that, but now it needs to be replaced. Maybe there's things that you need donated. Maybe there's grants that need to be written. Maybe you don't have enough staff to do some of the things you'd like to do. Maybe you don't have the right expertise, so training might be necessary. There might also need to be some policy changes in order to address some of the different areas. The QSA tool covers administration and organization. It covers measurement and outcomes. So there might be some higher level things that need to be addressed. You might also need to connect with some partners to get that expertise or to bring in some things that you don't have. All of this should be captured. Now, the tool allows you to capture your vote in terms of what performance level do you think you're at, and when do you think this should be actionable? Is this an urgent right now thing we need to deal with? Can we put this off till later after we've taken care of some urgent things? Is this something that we can put off till next year, maybe after we've made sure we've come up to threes and everything? But you also want to capture somehow, what do you think should be done? So I strongly recommend that as people are filling out the tool, they keep some notes. Some people like to write directly on the tool and just scribble in the margins. Other people keep a whole separate page of their thoughts. Some people use Post-its or bookmarks to keep track of what they want to do. But this is a natural extension of doing an assessment. People immediately start going into planning. So I want to make sure that you know to capture all of that information as you go. Now, when you're completing the tool, there are two ways to do it. I mentioned you can download a PDF. That's called the User's Manual. You want to make sure you use the 3rd edition. That has all of the instructions about how to use the tool and how to think about it. It has all of the elements and all of the performance levels. Or you can use a spreadsheet to do the exact same thing. Both of those are available for download at our website, networkforyouthsuccess.org/QSA. But I'm going to exit out of the PowerPoint for a moment and share with you what these spreadsheets look like. So we'll do a quick stop of sharing, and I'm going to start sharing what the spreadsheet looks like. This was another web feature, so this exists for the 2nd edition as well as the 3rd edition, but a lot of people haven't seen this. So I have two different things here. It looks like I'm sharing the compilation. So this is a spreadsheet that shares all of the individual scores and organizes them. You see down here at the bottom there are tabs. So the instructions shows you what to do. If I started here with, these are the administrator instructions. So let me switch out and show you what the other one looks like. I thought I was sharing that one. They're both called almost the exact same thing. Our November webinar that shows the, wait, I did have both of those in there. I just have to figure out how to switch from one to the other. So there's two spreadsheets. One is for people to fill in as the tool. So I said you could use the PDF tool, or you can use the spreadsheet. Here we go. So now you should be looking at something that says QSA Survey 3rd Edition Excel, and it says Instructions. So this spreadsheet has all of the information that is included in the PDF User's Manual, but you notice that everything is hyperlinked. So if I were to start this, I would fill in my site name, I'd fill in my role, and there's a drop-down menu. Am I a student? Am I a frontline staff person? Am I a site director or other administrator? Am I a school leader? These are all examples of the different types of stakeholders that can participate. I can also put in the date. And then you see that there's a hyperlink. I don't have to remember all these tabs and what am I supposed to do next. I can just click there to begin. All of the elements are listed here, and you can just follow the links and go straight to it. So you'll see that this looks very similar to what we were looking at before. That was a screenshot from the user's manual, but it has all of the indicators. It allows you to enter your performance level. It's all in a drop-down menu, 1 through 4, or not applicable. There might be some elements in here that don't fit your program because you're so specific, but you can also enter, when should we do this? It's not applicable. Maybe we're already at a 4. Or we need to do this right now. This is urgent. This is a this year thing, so not urgent, but important. Or we're going to have to deal with this next year because we've already got too much on our plate. All of this can be done in a spreadsheet, which means you can email it to people. So if you're trying to involve other stakeholders, they can get it this way. If you've got a large number of staff and you don't want to tabulate everything by hand, or if you just don't want to tabulate everything by hand, people can fill out this version of the spreadsheet, and then the person organizing the process can use this version, the site compilation, and put all of that information via cut and paste into one document, and then this will score everything. It will add everything up. So then you'll immediately be able to see how many people said 1, 2, 3, or 4, who thought this was right now, who thought this was next year, and it's organized by role. So this also auto-generates charts so that you can see everybody together, or what did the parents say, what did our frontline staff say, and it allows you to have a visual aid moving into the next stage. So all of this, again, is available for download on our website. It's up there right now. A lot of people are not aware of this, but this is another way that you can complete the survey, and I think it's important because it allows you to then easily move into the next stage, which I'll share in just a second. But let me come back to my PowerPoint. And while I'm doing that, if people have questions about either the user's manual or the PDF tool, go ahead and share those now while I make this super switch back to the PowerPoint. Okay, I'm back in the PowerPoint, but now I can't see anybody's chat menu, so bear with me just a second. I'm looking at the chat box again now. Thanks for your patience. So any questions about the user's manual or the QSA spreadsheet? The user's manual is downloadable as a PDF, and the spreadsheet is a Microsoft Excel. Both are free. Both are easy to download, easy to use. Again, if you have any questions during the course of this, please share in the chat box, and we will get to those at the end. Does anybody have any questions about completing the QSA tool? Kathy, I totally agree. This is an amazing free resource. And while people are thinking about this question about completing the QSA tool, I just want to point out this is free to anybody, anywhere. I mentioned up front that I worked in St. Louis, Missouri, and the state of Missouri. We were very aware of the QSA tool that New York developed. We downloaded it. We shared it with people. It helped us shape new editions of our tools, both in St. Louis and statewide. So people all over the country are going to be looking at this now that it's released and it's on our website and downloading it. Many states use it as their own. Other states have used it to inform their practice in developing their own statewide. So this is fantastic and free. It's not the only tool on our website, but because this webinar is focused on filling in how to assess your program, that's what I wanted to feature with you. So you've got a couple of different options, and both have extensive instructions. So Eileen has a question. How many individuals would be ideal for the self-assessment team? Great question. There's a lot of different ways you can slice it. I would say you want to aim for all the frontline staff and all of the administrators that work at that site. So let's say that's only 2 people. I was visiting a program yesterday, and there was one site director. You know, they're the manager responsible for all the reporting, and there's one additional staff person. I would say if both can do it, then both should do it. If you're talking about a larger group, maybe you have 5, 10, 15, 20, then my minimum would be representative. Can you get at least one frontline person, at least one administrator? And then you can start to build out from there. Some programs get representatives from a variety of stakeholders, including youth. So they have young people get involved in filling out the QSA. They have school administrators if they're in a shared space. They may have board members or senior administrators who aren't on site but participating. So you get to decide. I would say it's a good process to do even if you're only one person. So my short answer would be representative sample of as many stakeholders as you can get. And I see Sarah has a question. This can be used by all parties in a school building. We have several after-school programs, and it would be awesome to assess all of the after-school programming. I 100% say yes, Sarah. So any after-school program could be using this one. So if you have multiple things going on, They're all in the same building, but they're all led by different people. Maybe you've got some community-based organizations, you've got some school functions, you've got sports going on, you've got, some tutoring. Any of that stuff can be done separately, or you can put it all together. You get to decide. So let me emphasize the S in QSA. This is a self-assessment. So how you use this tool is completely up to you. Many people are mandated to use it because of their funder. If they're 21st Century Community Learning Center, Advantage After School, Extended School Day, School Violence Prevention grantees, they must use this tool, but it's still a self-assessment. You decide how many people are going to participate in the process. Your mandate is to participate in the process. So you can do it in any way that you want. It's a very flexible tool in that sense. I really like doing this process with a broad array of stakeholders because it's also educational for them. Your frontline staff and your site leaders already know a lot about the program. This is an opportunity for them to talk to each other about what's important and what they'd like to see. But for some of your folks in the building who maybe they know about the after school, but they don't think about it too much, this is a chance for them to see what quality really looks like and how after school fits in with this larger realm of a young person's life. That school plus after school plus summer learning plus all of these other things really do fit together. So it's absolutely meant to be used by a broad range of stakeholders. I'm looking to see real quick if there are any other questions, because some of this is leading into the next part, which is what happens next. So if you've downloaded the tool or you've used the spreadsheet, you've assessed it, you've done all of the 11 elements, and you've really thought carefully about what happens, and then you've turned that in, now what? So the next step is to bring everybody who filled out the tool together and getting them to share their results. So the tool is important as an individual practice to sort of think about all of these different pieces, but in my mind, the magic really happens when you start sharing, this is what I put, what did you put? So this is where those spreadsheets really become valuable, because now you've got people who can see very quickly what did everybody say about this indicator, and the important part is that once you compare those results, you then make sense of those results together. So if half of our group said, 1, we absolutely need improvement, and the other half said 4, we're so awesome at this, that's probably a good indicator to talk about. Like, well, why did you put that? What was your evidence? Why did you put that? What was your evidence? And in that conversation, you can really learn a lot about what's going on. In that particular case, sometimes it's a matter of experience. Some people are new and they don't know any better. They think we must be awesome at this. Other people are very, very experienced. They may have worked in the program 5, 15, 20 years, and they're saying, man, we have so much to learn. We have so much room to grow. And the reality may be somewhere in between, but you need to talk it out in order to find that out. This is where those notes about what do you think is important and is this something we need to work on right now, that's where that really becomes valuable, because now people can say, this is what I think we need to do to move this up, or to be at a 3 or be at a 4. So the quality improvement plan is not a big part of this step, but it becomes the end result and the next step, because everyone needs to come to agreement on what we're going to do to make this program even better. So that action planning, and these are some tools that we also have on our website. We'll talk about those in detail in our next webinar. The quality improvement plan can be done as a team, so everybody can have a conversation about it together. Sometimes you just give your information to one person and say, you go ahead and write this. We've told you what we think. You bring it back to us and we'll approve it. Or sometimes there might be a team of people, like the 3 of you, you represent us, you go ahead and craft it and bring it back at our next staff meeting. We do emphasize that these plans should have SMART goals. They need to be specific, they need to be measurable, they need to be on a time frame, there needs to be accountability in there so that you know who's responsible for what. All of those details should be in there. It shouldn't be a plan that sits on a shelf and gathers dust. You've already got everybody's buy-in, they've filled in the tool, they're excited about where they are and where they want to go. You just need to craft it so that a week later you can look back and say, oh, that's right, we agreed to do that. Let's get on that right now. You'll also have a really clear idea of what success looks like, because you'll be able to say, we know we've accomplished this, We know we've raised the level when we see these things in place. Once that plan is written, everybody should have access to it. This is something you should share with all of your stakeholders, whether they participate in the QSA or not. Everybody should see the plan and be really clear on what you're doing above and beyond to raise the level of quality in your program. And then, of course, the next step after that is implementing the changes. Now that you've done all of this work to build consensus, people have agreed on where they want to put their energy to improve, now you make those improvements. But everyone's already got the buy-in, you've eliminated resistance, people are ready to put these things in place, and this process of implementation typically happens day to day, but there's usually check-ins across staff meetings. One of the tools that we have on our website to help shape this is a calendar for the 2018-2019 year with some examples of when you might include this process of implementation. It might include your regular staff meetings. It might be at board meetings, either for your school or for your organization, where you give updates on your progress. It might also be at parent meetings or parent events where you say, hey, remember when we asked you about our program? This is what we're doing to make it even better for you. So that review is also part of implementation. Again, we have tools for that. We'll talk about that more in our November webinar. So I want to pause here and give time for questions. I see that Laurel has one, offering suggestions for increasing the number of respondents. And you say here, when you offer easy ways for them to complete the QSA, you get reduced response rates. This is a totally normal problem. This is true of any survey, not just the QSA. So my suggestions, and these are just suggestions, I haven't had to do this in a long time, so take it with a grain of salt. I would definitely build excitement up front. If you're a grant-funded program that's required to do this, you could put this in your parent handbook. You could make it part of orientation and say, hey, your opinion is really important to us, and we really want your opinion, and this is how we're going to get it from you. So when you see this survey, I'm going to be mentioning a lot, and I really love your input. This is what's going to happen. I am also really comfortable with a low response rate in the first year, and I'll tell you why. If I do all that work and I'm talking with parents all the time, I'm sending it home, I'm sending reminders, I'm doing all of this work, I've offered them an easy way to do it, and I only get a few responses back, I'm okay with that because I know I'm going to do this again next year. Many programs are now doing it again later that same year. They're doing a second cycle, either because it's required by their grant or because they think it's really good practice to make this a ongoing assessment and improvement process. So they do it multiple times during the year. So I know next time I'm going to say, hey, this is what parents told us in that first cycle, or this is what parents told us last year. This is what the other staff told us. This is what the administrators told us. And we took that seriously, and we made these changes because of it. So that communication through and at the end of the process really tells everybody, I was not kidding when I said we really take your input seriously. I was not kidding when I said we are going to look hard at what you tell us we need to improve. So that will engender some trust. People get a lot of surveys. They get them in their emails. They get them at programs. They get them at work. So some people are a little suspicious of where is this going to go? Is this even going to have any meaning for me? So don't be afraid of a small return in the beginning. It takes time to build that trust. But you can do it by doing all of the things that it sounds like you're doing. I'm going to make this as easy as possible. I'm going to remind you. I'm going to put it in our newsletter. I'll put it on our website. I'll talk to you every time I see you. But also by creating that plan and then sharing back with them and say, hey, we asked for input and we got it, and this is what that input told us. That can sometimes help you increase the number of responses you get from year to year. So more specifically, I said a couple of things in there. I'm going to make sure I say upfront what to do. I'm going to send reminders early and often. They should be written. They should be verbal. I'm going to depend on other people on my team to do the same thing. I might set out some time, like let's say late October through the beginning of Thanksgiving break. We're really going to try to get as many people as possible. We're going to be talking about it at least every week, if not every day. Those are things that have to be done. But again, don't be surprised if you still get a low return. But now your next steps are to follow up and say, based on what we were told from the people who did participate, here's our results. That's usually the missing piece with any survey. People don't get told about the results of the survey. They don't see what everybody else said, and then they're less likely to participate next time. If other people have examples of what they've done to increase response rates, or get more people to respond from those different stakeholder groups, I would love to see that in the chat box. I have my answers, I have my insights based on my experience, but I don't think they're the only answers, and they may not be the best fit for you. So if other people have some examples of what they do to get as many people as possible to participate in the process, I would love to hear that. In addition, if you have any other questions at this time, if there's other things that you want us to address, please let us know in the chat box. Other questions that you have, other concerns that you have regarding the 3rd edition quality self-assessment tool. Take another minute here. I see that we got a question, is the tool available in other languages? And the answer, which I just lost because somebody else was typing, yes, they are currently being translated. The 2nd edition tool is in multiple languages, and that 2nd edition is still available. Again, the 2nd edition has the spreadsheets on our website. It has the guidance for performance levels on our Insight. Many people didn't know that, but it is still available. So if you need to start right now in multiple languages, that is still available. The 3rd edition is currently in translation, and as soon as they're available, we will post those on our website, and we will probably send an alert out to everybody else. We didn't want to wait for those other translations, but we know that's important for a lot of families. The other reason that the 2nd edition is still up there, it has old branding from the New York State After School Network. We left it up there because we knew that we weren't quite going to have the languages ready. We know that some people have already started their self-assessment process with that 2nd edition. So we're going to leave all of those tools and resources available. This is going to be a slow, gradual transition into the 3rd edition. But thanks for that question. It's a really good question, and we're working as fast as we can to get those languages available and out on our website. Sarah Sanford asks, can this be recreated in Google Forms to reach a wider audience? The answer is yes, and the answer is also we are not going to do that. So that may sound like a flippant, sarcastic answer, and it is not. There is a reason why we use an Excel spreadsheet and not some sort of cloud-based service or database or like a SurveyMonkey type of service to gather this information. And that is because this is a self-assessment. We are not gathering your data. Anything that you enter about your programs, any data that you gather from your stakeholders about your programs, their opinions, their thoughts, we do not see that. We don't do any kind of aggregation of data. We don't do any sort of gathering or snooping on your data. That's why all of these things are downloads. So the spreadsheet is there. It shouldn't be a hard lift for you to turn that spreadsheet into a Google form. I've done that before. I've not done it with this tool, but I have taken an Excel spreadsheet and uploaded it into Google Sheets. So I think that should be relatively easy for you. What you need to know, though, is the Excel spreadsheet does have macros in it. So what that means is all of the data fields are linked so that if you enter something in one place, it carries over to the whole spreadsheet. So I showed you how I entered like my position and the date and all of that other stuff. That gets populated, and those spreadsheets are also meant to easily transfer from the individual sheets into the compilation. So I understand that some people are much more comfortable with Google Forms. You are free to take them and use them for your own purposes as you wish. If you want to create the charts, the spreadsheet will already do that for you. So the administration spreadsheet already has that built in. So if you copy and paste all of the individual spreadsheets into that master sheet, and there are instructions in that master sheet to tell you how to do that, the master sheet will automatically create all of those graphs for you. Our second edition allows you to do the exact same thing, and the third edition allows you, it's already set up, it's already built in, it's right in there. So if that's what you want to do, then the spreadsheet will allow you to do it, and all of those instructions are on the spreadsheet. Again, free download. Yes, it is great. Thank you, Sarah. And this is why I wanted to spend so much time talking about it in this webinar. All of these tools existed for the second edition, but when we gave presentations, people were what? A spreadsheet? What are you talking about? So I wanted to demonstrate it for you because we think that makes life a lot easier for a lot of programs. You're always going to have people who don't like computers, they don't trust spreadsheets, they just want to print it and hold it in their hands. that is still available. But for a lot of administrators and a lot of people anymore, having it on a spreadsheet, having something that they can easily email back and forth makes life a lot easier. Another question was, do I have to survey everyone on all 11 elements? Great question. So you do not. This is a self-assessment. You can decide what you want people to respond to. So I'll give you an example. If I was a site director and I wanted my frontline staff to take their limited time and fill out the survey, I might have them talk about their relationships, do that element. I might have them do the informal STEM learning because that was a big part of our program, and maybe I have them talk about the environment and the curriculum. So that might be 4 or 5 elements. I'm going to have them skip administration. I'm going to have them skip community partnerships because that stuff might be decided somewhere else. If we're a large organization, sometimes all of that is put into place when the grant is written, and we don't get to talk about any of that, or we don't get to impact any of that. So you can decide what elements they will do, and you can just give those instructions when you send out the spreadsheet. All you need to do is fill out elements 2, 5, and 6, and then send it back to me. All you need to do is do these pages. I've already separated them out. Some programs also like to divide and conquer. They'll say, okay, this team of 5 is going to work on these 3 elements. This team of 5 is going to work on these 5 elements. And that way, when you come together for meeting, you're able to cover all 11, but you're having different teams do it. So you still get all 11 done, but any one person has only seen part of the tool. There are lots of ways to do it. Again, it's a self-assessment. You get to decide how you want to roll this out, who you want to fill it out, and how much you want to have them fill it out. So you have that freedom. My understanding is that grants are required to use the tool to do self-assessment once or twice a year, depending on the grant, and how you do that is up to you. I strongly recommend, and we'll talk about this again in November, that at least one person in your program does do all 11 so that you get a really comprehensive view from someone. This might be the leader who's taking on the whole project, making sure that they're responsible for the self-assessment process overall. It might be a key administrator, it might be your executive director, but at least one person in your organization should fill out the whole tool just because you want to make sure that you're not missing anything critical. You want to make sure that all of the basic standards are met, that you're in line at least at 3s. You want to be aware if there's any places where there's a 1 or a 2 so you can make an informed decision about, is that something we need to worry about, or is that not applicable to our program? But other than that, you get to decide who gets surveyed and which elements they do. I'm looking to see if there are any other questions. We've got a couple of minutes left. Anything else that you'd like to ask about the Quality Self-Assessment Tool 3rd edition? Hearing none, got to figure out how to advance my slide again. I want to make sure that I share our contact information with you. So Allie Leidy is our Associate Executive Director. She's been working behind the scenes, making this webinar happen seamlessly. Thank you, Allie. And that's me, Timothy Fowler, the Professional Development Director. Between the two of us, we try to make sure that we handle everything related to quality self-assessment. Allie, I am looking for the next webinar, and I can't find it on my calendar. So if you can enter that in the chat for me, that would be great. You can follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook, and you can sign up for our listservs at networkforyouthsuccess.org. That is where we let everybody know about all of the different events that are happening in the world of after-school, summer, and expanded learning. It's also where you'll get any updates about the Quality Self-Assessment Tool. So when multiple languages are now available for the tool, that's where you will hear about it first, on our listservs and on our Facebook and Twitter feed. If you have any individual questions about the QSA, you can email me at timothy@networkforyouthsuccess.org. You can also email Allie. Allie is based in our Brooklyn office. I'm based up here in our Troy office, the Capital District office. Our next webinar, and I will enter this in the chat before I leave, is going to be November 7th. That's a Wednesday at 1 p.m. That webinar is called A Year with the QSA. And we're going to be talking about the overall process of quality self-assessment. So today we just talked about filling out the tool and how it's structured. The next webinar is going to be for that person who has to answer all of those questions you asked about, like, well, who fills this out and what elements are we doing and how are we going to fit this into all the other stuff we're doing? So we'll be talking about the overall process of implementation and some tips and tricks for making that happen easily. We want to thank you all very, very much for joining us today. I'll stay on the line for a few more minutes if people have some questions. Kareem, you are very welcome. I hope you have a great time using it, and I hope you let us know about your successes and your questions. Thank you again, everyone. We hope to see you on November 7th. You can sign up for that webinar now on our website, networkforyouthsuccess.org/QSA. The registration is up right now. If you are not the person who needs to attend that, share that with the person who is going to oversee the process because they'll want to see that. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll stay on the line if people have any other questions. Otherwise, we appreciate you being here and hope to see you soon.